Hi guys, it's Sandy here, and I'm so excited to be on the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel today. Today I have this adorable 5x7 birthday card made with the stamp set Hoot Hoot Hooray. I've also used the coordinating dies and the masking set that comes with this collection. Let's just jump right in. For this card, I am going to start out with the sentiment. I am going to stamp that on a piece of white cardstock that I have inked with Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide ink. I'm going to use the coordinating dies to cut those words out. I love that Trinity Stamps has the dies that go around the words, especially for something like this project, because I'm going to be cutting apart that longer sentiment so that it fits within the moon exactly where I need it to be. I've got to turn my U into a your, so I'm going to trim down the left side of that R, and I'm going to adhere it to the word U. Then I'm going to cut apart my Hoot Hoot Hooray, and I love the bubble stamp, especially because you can use your little scissors and just kind of trim around the letters in that bubble shape so that it's not just a real harsh cut. For my moon, I have cut a piece of cardstock using the Clean Cut Layers Circle Set A. I believe I've used the 7th one in from the outside edge. I'll go ahead and place that in my MISTI, kind of figure out exactly where I want my little owl on the branch to be, along with one of the balloons, and I will get that stamped. Leaving that moon in my MISTI, I will figure out where I want my first banner to go, where I want another balloon to be, which I put kind of coming out of his little wing. And I also need to apply a little party hat to the top of his head. I'm going to go ahead and stamp in one more banner and another balloon. Off camera, I have kind of used the sentiment that I have the words cut out, kind of help me with the placement of the balloons. I'm going to mask off my owl and balloons. How I've done that is I've punched them out of the masking set, and I've sprayed a little bit of pixie spray on the back of my masking piece. I don't want to get too much spray on there because sometimes that'll transfer onto my cardstock. So I kind of spray it and I definitely let it sit for at least a minute or two. And then I kind of remove some of the adhesive by just kind of sticking it to my skin. Sounds kind of gross, but that's what I do. And then it's not too sticky, but it will stick well enough to ink blend over. For the little triangle pieces in the banner, I wound up just leaving them still connected to the plastic on the masking set and spraying the back of them with the pixie spray. Then I used my X-Acto knife to kind of cut that little tab that's holding it in there. And then I was able to use my tweezers to lift them up and get them placed on the banner pieces. They are super duper small, so that for me was the easiest to use them and get them stuck on where I needed them to be. With all my masking done, I'm going to take my blending buddy along with some Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to ink over that entire circle, or my moon. Then I'm going to go back in with just a little bit of Mustard Seed Distress Oxide ink, and I'm just going to hit those outside edges, giving my moon a little bit of dimension and helping it look a little bit more rounded. Using my tweezers, I'm just going to lift off all those little masking pieces and set them aside. I will probably clean them up a little bit later with a little bit of rubbing alcohol to get the sticky stuff off and the ink. Even as careful as I was with the pixie spray, making sure not to have too much on the back of my little masking pieces, there still was a little bit of residue in spots on my images. So I just went ahead and I used my Copic colorless blender, the Zero, which I think is just alcohol, and just went in and kind of wiped those areas off. Now we get to do some coloring of our image. For the branch, I wanted that to be a different color than the owl. I used Copic marker. These are all Copic markers. Copic marker number E13, E15, and E18. For the owl, I used E41, which is the area right around his eyes, then E42, Y28, and E47 to blend in my little feathers. I did touch up his cheeks a little bit with some R21. His beak, and I guess their claws, are Y17 and YR09. For the blues on the balloons and the banner, I used BG01, BG02, and FBG2. The greens are YG05, YG07, YG09, and my reds are R14, R27, and R39. Off camera, I also colored in some of the little presents and cupcakes that came along with the stamp set, along with another owl. I didn't videotape that, just being cognizant of the amount of time that the video would take, since it was quite a bit of coloring. Using my white gel pen, I'm just going to go in and do a little bit of highlighting. I've inked up a 6x6 piece of cardstock with some prize ribbon Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to use the Starfield letterpress plate along with some gold foil, and I will run that through my hot foiling machine, and that will just give me a really nice background for my moon. I will use the Clean Cut Layers A2 set A to cut out the background of my card. I have used the Scenic Borders Slimline Series die set to cut out 2 grassy strips for the bottom of my card. I'm using just a medium green cardstock. I'm going to go in with some Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink and just hit those edges just to give the grass a little bit of dimension. I'm going to glue those 2 layers together. They are just a wee bit wider than the width of my card, but I wasn't quite sure where I wanted the grass lines to fall. That's why it's a little bit longer. And now we get to start putting everything together. I'm going to put some liquid glue on the back of my moon, and then I'm going to use my Pear Blossom Press little like T-square to make sure that when I adhere it to my card base or my background, that my stem that the owl is standing on is straight. I like using liquid glue better than double-sided adhesive tape just because it gives me some wiggle room and some flexibility on getting things lined up just right. I'm going to glue on my little grassy area and then just trim off the excess on that right-hand side. I like to add a little bit of dimension to my cards. So for this particular card, I have popped up some of the balloons, some of the presents and some of the cupcakes, and others I have just glued them down to my background. In retrospect, and it would have been actually pretty darn cute, is if I had popped up that whole grassy area, but that's another idea for another card. I've used the stamp set to stamp the sentiment on the inside of my card. I have also stamped it on a separate piece of cardstock that's been cut to 5 1/4 by 4 inches. I like to add a panel on the inside of my cards just to kind of beef up that cardstock. It always feels kind of weird to me if I don't do that and the front of my card has got all these layers on it. It just feels like it's just not quite finished. I'm going to use liquid glue to adhere the card front to my card base. Again, I love using liquid glue as opposed to double-sided adhesive just because it gives me some time and some wiggle room to get everything lined up just right. I am absolutely thrilled with the way this card turned out. I love the colors, I love the dimension, I love the little owls. I hope that you have found this process video to be entertaining and inspiring. Thank you so much for stopping by the Trinity Stamps YouTube channel today. Bye-bye.